We are live. A couple of minutes
Alive.
early. Everyone, welcome to the Stream of Consciousness. I think this is episode 3 of Stream of Consciousness in 2D. We're here with John McGowan, our co-host, and Barclay McGain and Enoch, our fellow Anon, as some of you may have known as Morgan previously. So welcome to the stream. We're just going to kick things off and go from there. I think big week. John, you've been pissing off a lot of people.
I've managed to piss off the left, right. Well, actually, not the center. I think the center's okay with me this week. But
Okay.
we started strong on the stream last week when I managed to piss off Joel Davis, who, with a frankly incredibly hilarious post on Telegram, where even his own guys were in the thread afterwards saying, wow, that escalated quickly. Because in the last paragraph, he just decided to invoke my cucking by Barnaby Joyce at the end, which was like impossible to complain about. Like, that was an incredible move by him. That then escalated to, I spent the whole night arguing with Nathan Sykes and that Windsor Beaver, you know, that one that I think we went after during the post-Charlie Kirk thing because she said something stupid.
Yeah.
Then I put that Substack up, which ended up moderating Joel, and he's now asked me to debate him and actually called off his French fine from harassing me. Actually, his criticism of my piece was legitimately good. Like, he's quite a decent political philosopher when he wants to be. But then we had the blow up with the March for Australia guys, who found me on video before the march. Making a joke, but I am going to unreservedly apologize for it. You shouldn't call people's babies Nazis. You don't know for years if a baby is going to be a Nazi, and those guys say they're not Nazis. So that was pretty funny. But funnily enough, they were probably, after I wrote like 40,000 words on how irrational National Socialism is, the NSN guys on their Telegram channel proved to be a lot more rational than the March for Australia guys, who are still creeping into my DMs, calling me a flog. And yeah, then we woke up this morning to find out that someone has done the most unforgivable thing, which is tell female leftists that I exist. And so now I've got a bunch of messages from women telling me I'm a bad person. So yeah, it's been a fun week of just pissing off everyone. So if you're still tuning in, let's see how it affects our audience, whether or not there's a boycott, an anti-McGowan boycott. That's why I'm not wearing bacon. I was thinking, yeah, it's probably too much of a stretch at this point.
Well, there's no getting fired from this stream, so it's like totally fine. That was weak. Like, look, I must admit, I put up some posts about Freya getting fired from Sky. Now, I must admit, I've actually never watched her show. So, I watched it. I watched a couple of times. I've heard from some people at Sky.
So there was only 6 episodes of it.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of my mates at Sky said that actually she was fired because of poor ratings. But my argument to that is, if that's the case, then fucking own up to it and don't be a cuck and just say that that's what the issue was, right? Don't hide behind some fake outrage because someone, wore bacon and offended a false prophet. Like, I just, it's just such a stupid fucking thing to do. And
she hasn't been fired from Sky, so she's still co-hosting the. She's still. I think it's. I've never watched the other show. Yeah. She's still co-hosting that, so they've just canned her show.
It just shows sort of weakness in that normie conservative space, right? Because like just a couple of weeks ago, you had journos of the left basically advocating for political violence, and they barely copped any pushback, right? Like, they copped a bit of heat from us.
Not in this country.
In this country, they copped a bit of heat from us. They copped a little bit of heat in the media cycle, but nothing happened. Freya had some dude on who made a fucking 10-year-old boomer joke, and immediately gets fired. Like, it just they don't understand that we're in a war of attrition, and conservatives are too busy stabbing themselves.
Well, the funniest thing was that they marketed.
I was just going to say,
No, you go, man.
I was just going to say there, John. Do you think part of the issue is, because I have seen it and I reviewed it, and I am continuously in my head, I suppose, floating that line between, or skirting that line rather, of like where cancel culture is, merited. And we perhaps saw it pretty merited in the wake of what happened to Charlie Kirk. And I'm not for a second saying that what this guy did, who I'd actually never even heard of before. I don't know where Freya, the producers, plucked him from. But is there kind of a line, I suppose, that sure, he was calling out, false prophet, Muhammad's by all historical accounts an awful person. And they've got a huge crisis, not just with immigration in the UK, but specifically, Islamic immigration. And that's, predominantly what a lot of the rape gangs, that's their purported religion over there. But I guess the sincerity in which he's making that argument, sure, it's probably wrong to, I guess, cancel Freya for it. But I suppose that, are we really getting any kind of legitimacy by making a point in that way? Literally wearing streaks of bacon on our shoulders.
But the way they kind of marketed that show was, it was marketed as, hey, right-wing kids, here's your edgy, controversial content. Yeah. Freya Leach on Australia's controversy show. And then the first time it's controversial, they fire her. That was the problem. That it was marketed as being like that.
The thing is, it wasn't even controversial. The joke was kind of, to be honest, it was a bit cringe. And even then, you've got conservative media fucking reaching for these smelling salts in a panic and just completely shutting down someone who was hired to run a show to engage the youth. It's just, this is why they lose. This is why they lose.
And by youth, we're talking the audience watching this right now. This is what they were angling for. They were trying to capture some of that energy that the online right has by going with Freya Leach. But to have it fail after 6 weeks is kind of insane. But
I guess one thing
they might bring it back. They might just bring it back eventually.
I just wanted to say one more thing is, I just wanted to ask, or I guess make one other further point, and maybe this is touching into, I guess, a bit more of a touchy subject. But one thing that I think that I've definitely noticed, because of how vitriolic and how passionate the left are on the Palestine issue, that as a response to that, almost, the right think that because we're notionally the pro-Israel side, I suppose, that we can just be rabidly pro any kind of anti-Islam if it's veiled under an anti-Palestine kind of view. Some of the commentary I've seen from some of the US legislators and lawmakers, Randy Fine comes to mind, who's a congressman from Florida, basically saying that, he didn't want to wash his hand after he shook the hand of Benjamin Netanyahu. And just this kind of but before he could at least, shake his kid's hand. And you just go, wow. And to be honest, I actually think that there's a lot of people, even people who are more moderate on the right, and they find this Israel issue and they fully go down that kind of rabbit hole. And there's almost no kind of sensitivity or kind of restraint that, hey, I'm in a public office here. And they just think that they can just go to the nth degree, I suppose. So that was kind of one other observation that I made, that a lot of people seem to think that the guardrail of what sensitivity is and to be a proper esteemed commentator who has considered thoughts, it's seemingly out the window so long as you're tribally bashing for Israel. I mean, that's what I've seen just on a few kind of different aspects. And that's just something I just thought I'd also note. I don't know if that was related to that speaker, but yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even watched the episode with the Bacon Man. I just watched the clips. But apparently immediately after Bacon Man, they had on some kind of transphobe, which made it even worse, according to Jenna Price at the Sydney Morning Herald. I'm super mad this week because I thought that paywall unblocker had stopped working for the Sydney Morning Herald, so I just stopped reading it, but it started working again. The SMH have fucked up some code and now you can just unblock their paywall again. So now I'm actually reading it and making myself angry, whereas before you'd see someone would post a headline of something in the Fairfax Press and you'd think, oh, fuck it, I'm not logging in to read that. And now I can just press a button and read it. Fucking Jenna Price has got to be one of the worst degenerate leftists still scribbling with a pen in this country at this point. I mean, it's worth typing that one into remove paywall just so you can see how bad she took it. I mean, she's talking about Sky News should be collectively punished because someone put bacon on. It's insane, absolutely insane. So anyway. We wish our best to Freya. We do have a back channel to communicate with her, and
we're going to get punished Freya on the stream, hopefully.
Yeah, she's welcome on the show whenever she wants. But at the time, I didn't realize that she still had like a job on the more conservative side of Sky News, so it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But if she ever wants to, she can come on and tell us all what's really been going on at Sky, because it's got a reputation in there for being like one of the shittiest places to work on in the Australian media. I mean, it's either like Peter Credlin yelling at you or Samantha Maiden shoving you in a locker and whipping you with an extension cord or something. I can't remember what they accused her of doing, but it was something funny like that. So God knows what it was like to work there. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say on Samantha Maiden, that's actually a name I haven't heard in a while, but I recall when I was involved, and I think we're going to probably chat about this a little bit later, I was involved handing out for the Aston by-election down to Victoria. And there was this whole controversy because apparently I'm supposed to be persona non grata, can't campaign for any kind of candidate that shares my beliefs because of some, past from when I was 19 years old. And Samantha Maiden actually wrote a whole article. I think the title was "Kiss of Death Campaigner." And actually, the last time I remembered that, I shared it once the Voice referendum had happened because I was very involved against the Voice. And I said, "Really, the Kiss of Death campaign? I think we won the Voice referendum pretty good." So yeah, but that's a name I haven't heard in a while. Sam Maiden, has she still got a driver's license? Or?
No, I think she got it back. Yeah, I haven't spoken to her in a while. I used to speak to her all the time when I was working for Lehrman. But I remember that when that story happened and thinking to myself, the Liberals are so desperate. I mean, of course they need you to hand out for them. Like, I mean, how many people left are there to hand out? They'd probably let me hand out for them at this point. I could be on a booth handing out with Bruce Lehrman and they go, "Oh, well, it's better than the Exclusive Brethren," I guess, kind of.
Well, mate, I mean, talking of like, lib campaigning and all that kind of stuff, part of the reason why we invited you on the stream is you put up a post about entryism, which full context, John and I want total liberal death. You're going to have to run. And now
the chat will now type
the chat will now start posting TLD. And look, full context, we're done. Right, like we're at the total liberal death stage, but there are a few people that are saying no, like give us one last chance to turn things around. Tony Abbott's been saying that. Some people are saying that Hastie's the guy, and he's starting to talk about mass migration, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to hear your argument for entryism, so that I can then counter argue it with the concept of total liberal death.
So, but before we go in, just remember, like we don't do debates. Debates are lame, but we are going to stress test it, right? Because I mean, everyone's got ideas, and all ideas are good, but you should put the blowtorch to every idea. So that's all we're going to do. Someone said, to be fair, I think the Liberals are at total McGowan death as well. Yeah, I think you're right. They probably are. All right, so take it away, Barclay. Yeah.
I was just going to say two things I probably wanted to start with was, first off, thanks so much for having me on. Brian, we've been friends for years, and John, hopefully tonight you can piss off the centrists, crucial demographic that we need to get to. And yeah, definitely, guys, spam the comments, say anything bad about me. I've got a thick skin, so who cares? But two things I'll probably add before I give you my pitch, and then we can stress test it, is one, my contention is not to vote for the Liberal Party. I've never once... I direct people to vote for strong individual candidates. Now, sure, some of them are in the Liberal Party. Some of them are not in the Liberal Party. But my contention is not to, just, close your eyes and tick the Liberal box just one more time. That's not my contention at all. The second caveat that I'll also add before I go on is that everything in politics is comparative, right? I don't think anyone's out there saying, "Oh, bro, just join the Liberal Party. It'll be easy." No one's saying that. Everything is comparative. So everyone can spam the chat with something saying, "Oh, it's Liberal Party is dead," or "It's way too hard," or "I was denied entry." It's like, and the alternative is, and that's the great question. That is the great question. Everything is comparative. So as much as this is not debate, it's just a forum to stress test my idea. If we don't have a comparative alternative, well, then we're basically debating entryism, which is what you've discussed, Brian, or we're debating whether we should all just take up gardening and go off the grid, perhaps. So that's basically two caveats that I'll add first and foremost. My history, I suppose, a little bit is I joined the Liberal Party when I was 16, and then not long into that, I was the Gold Coast Young LNP chair, which is one of the largest branches. And then not long into that, we decided to do a promotional video at Schoolies on the Gold Coast. And at that Schoolies video shoot, we were asking people their questions about just vanilla political issues, like what was their opinion on Scott Morrison, what was their opinion on freedom of speech and our Australian national flag and national anthem. And it was on that final question that one of the people who I interviewed, so not me, said, oh, we've got to stop celebrating a culture that couldn't invent the bloody wheel, talking about Indigenous culture. And, on the back of that, as just a teenager, I was 19 at the time, I was number one trending on X. I was front page of just about every single media outlet, and I suppose I was cancelled all throughout the media. And I had my Liberal Party membership suspended, and I even had the journalists outside my house for 2 days. And in that whole moment, when you've not got the party standing up for you, behind your back saying, Barclay, we're going to defend your rhetoric. We think you've actually highlighted a very key issue, such as the fact that, welcome to countries are very overdone. That's an understatement. And also the fact that, hey, some cultures are in fact better than others. That's, we should be unashamed in saying that. Nope, there was no vouching for my character at all. And I think it's been widely reported. And I said at the time that I felt like I was thrown under the bus, and I was thrown under the bus under the guys that, we're 10 months away from an election. I just had to be collateral damage. So that's hardly a ringing endorsement of the Liberal Party. And I suppose that it's taken only just some maturity because I'm still not allowed as a member of the Liberal Party, even 6 years later. It's taken some maturity on my part to realize, it's through some soul searching over those years, that truly, joining the Liberal Party is the best way to go ahead and reform it. And the way you do that is not by voting for them or putting a Liberal shirt on and waving like a loser on the side of the road, as much as sure I've done that plenty of times in my life for good candidates. It's actually about being able to vote in the pre-selection process, and only because I've seen how easy it is to do. So, a friend of mine, Amanda Stoker, she is someone who was a senator, and she was in the Australian Senate for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And then she lost her pre-selection solely because enough Conservatives weren't in the room there to back her to be the Liberal Party Senate candidate again in the position that she'd like. And everyone was thinking her political career would be over. She was, I guess, the darling of the Conservative right, in many ways similar to like a Freya Leach type figure, notionally on the centre right of the party, I suppose. And Amanda Stoker, she was a high-flying barrister, had a young family, husband, could have gone back to them, but she decided she wanted to remain in the political fight, but she needed a spot to do it. So there was a retirement in the Redlands area. Dr. Mark Robinson, strong Conservative. It's a strong Conservative branch in terms of the Liberal Party membership, but not only that, it's also a strongly Liberal electorate. Basically, if you win the Liberal Party pre-selection there, you are safe for decades. And recently, I mean like last year, they held the pre-selection to replace the retiring MP, and it was between Amanda Stoker and I guess you could say a more moderate candidate, and she won on a vote of 63 to 40. And now, as I said, this is a safe Liberal seat. She won that pre-selection. She could now be in politics for the next 30 to 40 years. She's a young person. And I am just absolutely in awe of how easy that is. That is my true belief. I am stoked, and I can't even believe and fathom it, that all we needed was 62 likely people aged over 70 to walk in on their wheelchair frames to rock up to the Cleveland RSL on a Sunday, and we created a new Liberal candidate and now a state MP. That to me is mind-boggling. The idea of entryism into the Liberal Party would not work if there was the same numbers of political parties that you saw in the US. For instance, I was fortunate enough to spend 6 of the last 12 months over in the US, and you definitely feel like a tadpole in the ocean. It is a massive place. And in terms of Republican primaries, which would be the equivalent to our Liberal Party pre-selections, the ease at which you can vote in Republican primaries is way too easy. When you register to vote, you register am I Republican or Democrat, and like 25% of the country are registered Republicans. And added to that, in a lot of states, you actually have open primaries. Added to that again, they've got like 13 times the size of our population. Segue that. So over there, you've got hundreds of thousands of people voting in Republican Party primary pre-selections. Let's be real. If I alone, me and my friends, started trying to set out to influence the 2028 Republican primary, it's delusional. The sheer scale at which you'd need people to join is crazy. Segue back to Australia. In the Queensland LNP, which is, of course, a merger of the Liberal and the National Party, this is apparently the most conservative state too, is about 10,000 members. Now, that is staggeringly small. When you actually divide it across 93 state electorates and 30 federal electorates, there are very few people in the party. It's to the point where if you were able to bring in 100 people within the party, you could exercise huge say on who the pre-selected candidates are in a number of seats that will be winnable. In the last federal election, of course, there was a huge Liberal loss, even in Queensland, which was the state that won ScoMo the election in 2019. But take an electorate like Petrie, was a great Conservative candidate like Luke Howarth. In 2028, there's going to be another ballot for whether we have another Conservative like Luke Howarth or someone who's a total Labor light figure. Well, if we have enough people there in the party, we can literally pre-select a federal MP. That is kind of my case for how people can get involved. Again, I don't think at any point I mentioned who you vote for. Everyone should just vote for solid, good individual candidates. I'm yet to see the merits of being a member of a minor party. Like if I was to join One Nation, for instance, I'm sure I'd get a great keyring and a great bumper sticker. And I think Pauline Hanson makes really good
flag.
Yeah.
Yes, and she also makes very good knitted sweaters if I pay a premium.
But you'll get to fund the cartoon. Your name will go up in the credits at the end. Apparently, they're going to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So look, there are some perks, but as far as I'm concerned, they're not consequential perks that allow us to truly shape Australia. And I think you might have mentioned in the previews for this show that the elephant in the room is Andrew Hastie, and that's the heir apparent, in my opinion. And he needs to be the urgent heir apparent to truly lead the Liberal Party to hopefully get them back into government. But when I say hopefully get them back into government, I mean the Conservative people within that party that aren't Labor light and aren't trying to chase votes from Labor, the Greens and the Teals. So that's my pitch, but I'm happy to stress test it.
So, okay.
Yes.
So to wind it back to the beginning, well, the thing you said about the GOP is really interesting because actually friend of Brian and mine, we were speaking about some upcoming political activity we got, and we were talking about this exact topic because to me, what happened to the GOP in the last 8 years is actually it's what demonstrates to you, not that it doesn't work, but that how insanely hard it is going to be. Because what Donald Trump, well, putting Donald Trump necessarily aside, but what MAGA represents is an entryist program into the Republican Party, an extension of what they'd done in the past with the Tea Party, which never made it beyond the gubernatorial phase. And it becomes like that's effectively what it is. They were entryists going into those primaries, voting for a chaos candidate who eventually won. Now, Trump's first term is pretty much a disaster. Like, it was cool. There were bits of it that were cool, but a lot of those guys who were active, they turned away as soon as Trump failed on the wall, when he fails on the border. COVID hurt him badly at the end, right? And he loses the next election because he really has nothing to, go down to, particularly in the southern states with, and fight Biden on, right? In those 4 years, the workload, the work that the Republicans put in to get Trump to the point where he can not only win, but the entryist program can succeed is massive because he's got all this infrastructure now, and this is why, why was Charlie Kirk so lionized by the GOP in the US? It's because Turning Point represents one of the guardrails that the Republicans built into MAGA so that you didn't end up with what happening in the first 4 years, which is that you might be leading the government, you might be the president, but you've got all these losers and moderates and never Trumpers and people who neoconservatives and people who are all over the shop behind you. And not only that, but they're occupying positions in your cabinet, right? He's got John Bolton, he's got Pence, who's a moron. So he had to build the infrastructure to keep everyone on the same page. And then he had to find the talent so that loyal people could staff all the positions. So this is the first challenge of entryism into the Liberal Party, because let's say there's enough of a groundswell of people at a rank and file level in the party that some of the centre-right guys, the mods, take notice. You get Hastie in there. Well, Hastie is Donald Trump in 2017 at that point. Because all Hastie is then is a guy leading a shadow cabinet full of moderates. We've talked about this before on the stream that, let's say he flukes it in. Let's say Susan Lee does something, like John Hewson cake style stupid and they roll her. Well, Andrew Hastie just leads a lame duck shadow cabinet, right? So it's interesting what you're talking about. It kind of addresses that element because you're saying it's about the pre-selections, right? But the problem is, like you said, it's these little old ladies that go to the pre-selections. They're not solid people, right? You might convince them to vote for one candidate, but are you convincing them to change their entire worldview? Are you convincing them that we need net zero immigration? Are we convincing them that we need to like do what Hastie's doing on, walking away from liberal shibboleths like free trade, etc., restore domestic manufacturing, come down hard on China? Like, when you think, I think what attracts a lot of people to the idea of an entryist project is it seems easier. Because if you sit down at an empty desk and say, well, are we going to start a new party or are we going to take over the guts of a sclerotic one like the Liberals? It seems easier on paper because starting a new party is hard. But then when you think about, okay, we need to build the guardrails, we need the infrastructure to police them, we need all the talent, we need to replace all the old talent, and we need to re-educate rank and file members. Like, the job is way, way harder than just, we're just going to stack some branches and we're going to win a couple of pre-selections. So that becomes the point at which I think it falls down, is that like what you're saying is true. What you're saying is achievable, like in the context of where you've got someone like Stoker or like Hastie, or, like if someone had worked harder to hold on to Rennick's pre-selection rather than let that whole shit show happen, it's doable piecemeal and you'll get a few good people in there. But are you going to end up with a good government? Are you going to end up fixing the country? I think the answer is unfortunately no.
Well, I think just to add to that as well, before you respond, Barclay, there already is an entryism program happening right now. It's called mass migration, right? Like demographics dictate democracy in this country, right? We are, depending on where we are, when it comes to the census data, we're facing a demographic cliff, and I am completely skeptical that the Liberal Party are the ones that are going to turn this around. So there is an entryist program that's happening. It's via millions and millions and millions of strangers entering this country because the Liberal Party created that policy and the Labor Party enacted it to put a noose around our fucking neck. And now the pushback is, well, give us one last chance. If we, get enough people joining as members, they can pre-select good guys, and then we'll have hasty momentum and turn the party and the country around. Well, fuck, mate. I heard that with Tony. I heard that with Dutton. I heard it a million times over the last 15 years that something's going to happen, and nothing ever fucking happens. And given the demographic cliff that we're facing, at a certain point, someone needs to say, no, sorry, you've had time to piss. You didn't piss, so get off the pot. And maybe there's a sloppy option to start a third party or an activist group to actually, shift the Overton window far to the right. But that's what needs to happen in my view. So I guess, like all I'm hearing from you is like branch stacking, but a little bit more. So I'm not sure where it's meant to go.
Yeah, definitely. So a few things. The reason I would never self-identify as a branch stacker, I suppose, is because genuinely the people that I've recruited, brought into the party, have all been people who are bona fide, people who I've met at pro-life marches, people who I met at March for Australia when I marched, and people who I just like my Facebook post or something like that. They're the people who I've gotten to join. I would say branch stacking to me is me giving $50 to a guy on the street saying, hey, fill out this form. So that's kind of the distinction I would give. But I'd also say that this kind of narrative that you've both set up, I think is a bit misleading in the sense that you basically said that there's no existing infrastructure. I would put to you that there is, and it simply comes down to numbers. The vote for Susan Lee to be leader was 29 to 25. Now, you can look at that two ways. You can look at that and say, shit, can't believe they thought Susan Lee was the best leader. Or you can look at that and say, wow, 25 people thought Susan Lee would not be a good leader, and they were willing to pick Angus Taylor, who presided over the last election as treasurer, and by all accounts did not have many good policies to point to. Now, I'm telling you with confidence that all of those 25 people would get behind Andrew Hastie, as it now looks like he is looking to mount a run. As far as I'm concerned, if a person in the Liberal Party, sure, we can point to all their faults that we like, but if they're willing to back Andrew Hastie over Susan Lee, that's a green tick mark in my view, and I'd be willing to campaign for that person. Now, I know some people have this purity test of, wow, but they're not for re-migration, or they're not for mass deportations, or they're not for some extreme view of something. One thing I'd encourage everyone who's, I would, in my opinion, black-pilled, is to understand what the Overton window is. I think Andrew Hastie is moving the Overton window. I think Matt Canavan is moving the Overton window on a lot of topics. And I don't think that a lot of other people who aren't in that party room are. I can tell you anecdotally here in Queensland that if I and a lot of my friends and supporters were to stop doing what we're trying to do with the Liberal Party and the Liberal National Party here in Queensland, Matt Canavan will lose his pre-selection. So I don't, and that's not like saying oh, mass exodus, good, Max. I don't know what's good about Matt Canavan losing his pre-selection. And now a lot of people would come to me and say, well, Matt should join People First. He should join One Nation. He should join Libertarian or Trumpet of Patriots or one of these other. We should actually stop using the term third party, by the way. At this point, it's actually, should we create a 16th party? Because there's that many minor right-wing parties that have been tried before. If Matt Canavan was to join One Nation or the Libertarians or People First, this is what would happen. Just as what happened in this federal election in my state of Queensland earlier this year, the spot for the final, the fight for the final spot in the Senate was between Jared Rennick and Malcolm Roberts, both what I would call conservatives. Is that really what we're aspiring to? Do we really want? Is our great goal in politics, TLD, total liberal death, is our real goal just for Matt Canavan to verse Pauline Hanson for the final Liberal Senate spot, or the final Senate spot in 2028? This is just so, I'm kind of clueless as to how this makes sense. And I suppose that, as I said at the top of the program, everything is comparative. There's a lot of people in the comments basically saying, well, it needs to burn, it needs to die. I'm hearing a lot of diagnoses and not many kind of remedies. If you were a doctor and you just said, you've got tuberculosis, you've got this, and you never gave any remedy, prepared to not be a doctor anymore, right? You're actually a shit doctor. If you just diagnose problems and you don't actually find solutions, again, it doesn't have to be the best solution. Sometimes you're a doctor and you diagnose someone and say, sorry, you're going to die, right? Now, maybe that's what some people in this chat are saying, in this metaphor that I've created, that they've diagnosed Australian politics, and they said Australian politics is going to die. Well, quite frankly, I'm 25, and if your view at my age of 25 is that Australia is going to die and that we should just abandon it, please leave. Please leave this country. You should probably leave. You're not helping. And also, you're not my ally. You're my enemy. Because I'm 25 and I want to have kids here. I don't envisage moving anywhere else. I'm pro-Queensland too. And I'm going to live here for 60 years. And I'm going to do my best to absolutely make it as best I can. And I see it, particularly in Queensland, as the means in which to, really do what we can with the LNP. And I will also add, in Queensland, there's also added significance for it. A lot of the classic cases of minor party successes in other states, I know he's a bit boogeyman right now. Mark Latham in New South Wales, John Ruddock in New South Wales, David Limbrick in Victoria, Sarah Game in South Australia. You've got some people over in WA. I think there was even an Australian Christians candidate. None of them can happen in the state of Queensland, where we have a unicameral system of government. We do not have an upper house. The strongest case for any kind of right-wing minor party in the history of Australia, and the strongest state for that strongest ever minor party, is Queensland. In the Queensland State Parliament, One Nation have 0 out of 93 state MPs, 0. In the federal parliament, they have 0 out of 151 MPs. My ultimate goal in politics is to be able to look at our prime minister and say, yeah, that's my guy. Yeah. And I actually do think that when I was living over in the US, a lot of Americans did feel that way about President Trump. They better look at him and say, yeah, sure, says colorful things, don't agree with everything, but pretty sure he has my best interests at heart. He's on my side. I would not feel that way about Susan Lee, nor would I currently about Anthony Albanese. What I would feel that way is if we had someone like Andrew Hastie, or if we keep shifting the Overton window, someone like an Alex Antic if he was to shift into the lower house. That's my ultimate goal in politics. To do that, you need 47 seats in the Queensland State Legislature or 76 seats in the federal parliament. One Nation are at 0, and in both parties. in both houses? Like, how are we tracking here? Where are we?
Yeah. Before John goes serious, I've only got three sort of yes or no questions. You know, Barclay, we've been mates for a while, and I know that you are sort of broadly in our direction in that you want to turn this country around. But the questions I have are: do you want to heavily slash migration? Yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the case, and you know, Hastie's out there saying we need to end mass migration and shifting the Overton window and all this kind of stuff, are you not concerned that these people are wearing this issue as a skin suit? And what I mean by that is this issue has come up despite the Liberal Party. Right? The Liberal Party actually enacted most of the policies that has allowed our country to be treated like a fucking revolving door. Labor's then enacted those policies, as I said before, to tie the noose around our neck. March for Australia has happened despite the containment grifters trying to shut it down, despite mainstream media trying to destroy it. Heaps of people have turned out, and then Hastie and others have seen that. My concern, and it's shared by a lot of people, people who are disaffected Libs, people who, sure, they would never join the Libs, but they are of the right. Their concern is that this is all just, a giant skin suit being worn by Hastie and others saying, "Oh, we're going to do something this time," and is this going to be another Boris Johnson scenario, but in Australia, where the based guy gets in and then there's just a fucking Hastie wave of migrants? Like, what's the insurance policy against that, right? And anyway, I'll let John sort of dive in and then we can...
Well, I mean, there's a few things to unpack there. I mean, Don Caramello in the chat just said something interesting. He said the Liberal Party executive get a vote too, and they also get to count the votes. Well, I did hear something interesting today, which is that the proposals in New South Wales have just dropped for party reform, because obviously New South Wales has been a basket case ever since they forgot to file their nomination forms for the council, and they've been effectively run by Victoria ever since, and now they're looking to get their shit back together. And members are in open revolt about it because it's effectively just going to put all the power in the hands of the moderates in New South Wales and effectively block out any chance of anyone to do exactly what you're saying, because everything is going to end up going through a state director that's appointed by 5 people from organisations, the YLs, the Women's Council, the other shitty orgs I can't remember, and they're gonna block everything. So, there are these challenges that, I think what you're talking about is, and like it is a valid scenario where, I mean, you look at the rising vote for One Nation, which is now sitting on, I think, 13% nationally. It's 16% in New South Wales. I imagine it's a lot higher in Queensland. The Liberals are freaking the fuck out. No matter how wet a Liberal is, they care more about one last hurrah in the Comcar around Canberra than they care about renewable energy. So is that going to be enough? Is the potential loss in so many seats going to be enough for them to give up on the 3 or 4 teal spots and swing back right? In which case they go with Hastie and they, actually come up with some kind of swagger policies to actually appeal to those people. That's all well and good, but you're still not going to change the people. Like, it's still run by the same people. It's still run according to the same principles. It will always be run according to that principle that even though you might get a generational figure like a Hastie or an Antic, or for the Nationals, a Canavan, the rest of the party isn't like that. And most of the party are going to be these people that we all know who come up through the state branches, who are purely in it for that
robots,
for that trip around the roundabout in their Comcar. The ex-staffers and the lobby group guys and the GR guys. Like, at this point, it's very difficult to fix that. Now, I was on a podcast with Dan Ryan from National Conservatives a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this stuff, and he made the point about the Americans, because he'd just come back from, or was just about to leave for the National Conservative conference in the US. And he said, the interesting thing about Trump this time is he's doing so much better and he's got so much more control, but all those never-Trumpers are still there. All the rhinos are still there. The difference is he's got control of them. And so I don't think anyone, me included, has an answer for how you would control these people. The only control you can have is to just pray that they act in their own self-interest and they want to get the ride in the Comcar more than they want to blow the joint up. Now, maybe 90% of them would, but we saw in, Rudd's, the end of Rudd's term, Gillard's term, and then Rudd term 2, that even in a organisation like the Labor Party, where people are, that is ingrained, they don't always think like that. And sometimes there will be a guy who doesn't get enough stuff, a guy who doesn't get the committee appointments he wants, isn't feeling like he's listened to, or is worried about his pre-selection, and they will blow the joint up. So there's really no obvious solution to that unless you're a generational figure who can exercise like total control, like a John Howard. I mean, John Howard keeps total control of the Liberal Party through sheer force of will for 10 years. I like Andrew Hastie, but he's no John Howard. Alex Antick's no John Howard. Matt Canavan's no John Howard. So there's no one there.
John Howard didn't look like John Howard before he became John Howard.
True.
In 1996, you had no idea that John Howard was John Howard.
Yeah. But I mean, I think though, there were, and the other thing, back to that talent point, like he had so many people around him who could absolutely keep control. I mean, anyone who's been a former staffer who's been on the receiving end of a dressing down from Tony Nutt, campaigns that were run with Brian Loughnane, these people kept an iron fist around the government. They had Max Moore-Wilton keeping an iron fist around the bureaucracy to make sure they didn't fuck up. So you had the talent, and so you had all the pieces. You had the guardrails organised. I mean, we have today, all the Liberals have got is advance. I mean, back then they had the IPA, the CIS. They had the H.R. Nichols Society, which was, one of the driving forces between work choices. So there were all these external groups. I mean, they had the Minerals Council. They had, who would eventually save their bacon over the climate tax. So you had all these external groups. You had a fuck ton of money, and you wasn't. And this is where, I know you guys like in Queensland love Canavan, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think the net zero thing is tipping at windmills at this point. Like, is it really worth blowing anything up over money you get from the resources industry? Because the resources industry hates white Australians as well. And the resources industry isn't going to save us from mass migration. The resources industry is going to keep selling cheap shit to China. The resources industry will pay you a lot of money until net zero gets put in the ground, and then it will stop. And I know from checking who's in the chat, there's a couple of you guys who work for BHP, right? When you go to work tomorrow, count how many pride and trans flags there are in those offices. I know you complain about it, right? So we're sitting there having this confected discussion driven by Advance, driven by Canavan, and helped on by Hastie, the Liberal rebels putting net zero front and centre. I don't give a fuck about net zero. Right? I don't think any conservative or any person of the right in this country should care about net zero, because all these guys are going to do once they get a change to the net zero policy is they're going to pull their money out and they're going to fuck us, right? And then they're going to campaign for more mass migration because it's expensive to run mines. It's expensive to export steel. It's expensive to put the shit on the boats. So, this is my problem with where the Liberals are going, is that the number one issue in this country right now is mass immigration. It's not net zero. The country is ticking along fine with net zero.
It's the other net zero.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's that's a really good point, Enoch. I might steal that for a tweet later, but it's the other net zero is the big challenge. And, I think this is becoming a massive distraction for conservatives around the country, being driven on by Advance and Sky and whoever. And we're going to get nothing out of it. We're going to get not a single thing out of it. When an actual genuine right-wing alternative is actually going to have to call the entire fossil fuel industry and the entire resources export industry into line and say, our country is not a trading hub for you to sell cheap steel to China, because there is an existential risk that steel is going to get shot into the chests of Australians' young men in the future. We could be the only country to ever have that happen to us. So this is one of the reasons why I just don't even think it's worthwhile at this point, to even try and fix the Liberal Party, and that you are just almost better off starting from the bottom, even if it means, a once in a generation 100-seat majority for the ALP. Starting from zero is better than the country continuing to bleed to death just from a different hole, which is what the Liberals are basically.
It sounds like you're advocating for 0 seats.
That's another net zero. Can I make
another net zero? Net zero seats.
Yeah.
Perhaps like to maybe chart a middle path in a weird way. What if we built our own movement? We had an online strategy. We built a network of our own that wasn't a political party for the time being. We entered the Liberal Party, right? We support, the right people in there. And, new people can get some skills, learn what politics is about. The Liberals are, after all, political professionals. We could maybe even network inside the Liberal Party, maybe find some people who like what we're about and be very clear what we're about. We've got to be, if we're going to sit outside the party like this, we've got to be very clear. What we're about is, in my opinion, it's got to be like demographics, migration. That's the issue. But if we get to the point where they have to kick us out, that generates a lot of publicity, and that can be like a trigger point where we then either create a party or join an existing movement and change what it is and like roll things together on the right. But like, and the idea of like a Hastie getting behind us because that's his only kind of path to actual electoral safety is an interesting one as well. You could add that in or leave that out. I think that's potentially viable. Like if you look at Restore Britain, that's not a political party. That's a movement. And they can go in a lot of different directions. They got that flexibility.
Well, I guess one thing that I might chime in then, and there's obviously a few comments that I wanted to touch on. I think what you've described, Enoch, is something that I'm probably on board with. And can I explain why? Every single right-wing movement that has formed in Australia as a political party in that political party form has been formed by former Liberal Party members. The only way in which you would know who they are is because they were Liberal Party pre-selected candidates. Pauline Hanson, you might disagree with her. Some people in the chat might say she's old news, right? Fundamentally, by every metric, she is the most successful non-coalition right-wing figure elected politician in Australia's recent history. That's inescapable. In 1996, she won Liberal Party pre-selection for the seat of Oxley. 15 people rocked up to the pre-selection. She won on a vote of 9-6. If those grannies, 2 of those grannies didn't vote for her and they voted for the other person, you would not know who Pauline Hanson is today. Every single person listening today, every single person on this call, you would not know who the most important, the figurehead of what your supposed alternate plan is. You would not have ever heard her name if 2 grannies at the Red Bank Plains RSL didn't vote for Pauline Hanson. Is that not mind-blowing? What you've just described, Enoch, is 1,000% the way people like Jared Rennick have become influential right-wing figures because they won Liberal Party pre-selection. George Christensen, we would not know his name, as much as he's a good friend. We would not know his name if he was not pre-selected as the National Party candidate for Dawson in 2010. We would not know Bob Katter's name if he wasn't pre-selected as the National Party candidate back in 1974 or something like that. All these people, you would not know their name. People like Campbell Newman, who for a while there was spearheading the Libertarian Party here in Queensland. I put it to you, you would not even know Mark Latham's name. Because he was once the opposition leader in the Labor Party. Arguably, would not even know John Ruddock's name because he wouldn't have had the kind of fame to ascend to the top of the Libertarian Party ticket with all of his efforts for constitutional reform in the New South Wales Liberal Party. Now, I get to John Ruddock because I think he's a very interesting case and someone who I respect and admire a lot. With John, he is someone who did try my strategy for a long time and after quite some time gave up. And I guess maybe I'll add one more caveat. The moment you are no longer able to have a democratic outcome in your state's coalition branch, then yes, I will concede that is the point at which you are to take up gardening, try an alternate path.
That's the situation they have in New South Wales now. It's a situation that's looming in Victoria. I mean, I've heard I don't have great contacts in WA, but I mean, there's a lot of guys over there who say that they suspect Hastie's push has more to do with his own pre-selection and the pressure he gets from, particularly the WA Liberal China caucus, than any sincere belief that he could pull it off. I think every state, except for Queensland, has this challenge. The LNP is incredibly strong in Queensland and always has been, and incredibly right-wing. And it's kind of a lesson to the other branches that, if you do actually act conservative occasionally, you might actually win. So, I think we've crossed the Rubicon on democracy in the Liberal Party a long time ago. I don't know if that's necessarily at the when you talked about back when the in the past, all the people that you wouldn't have known were in the if it weren't for the parties they came out of. I mean, that's really just a legacy of the way Australian politics used to be run, right? I mean, Australian politics, we were a two-party state for a really long time. I mean, up until the rise of the Democrats, we were effectively a two-party state. And so, every legacy political figure is going to have some connection back to the Liberals. I mean, even a lot of the Teals right now have connections back to either the Liberals or, in some cases, the ALP. So,
would you say Jared Rennick is a legacy political figure?
Absolutely, he's a legacy of the Liberal Party, right? He was pre-selected from the Liberals at a time when we all thought politics in this country would be a push and pull between occasionally conservative, broadly classical liberals and the Australian Labor Party. I mean, anyone who got pre-selected prior to COVID, I think, falls into that category. COVID is the break point for Australian politics. I mean, COVID is the mask-off, naked lunch moment of the entire Australian political project, where for the first time the public realised these guys are trying to kill us. One way or another. And I mean, now it's because with mass migration, but I mean, with COVID, I think it was with everything else. So if you came in prior to COVID, I think, as far as I'm concerned, you're a legacy poll. I don't think anyone, and I think everyone since then is, they're almost these people marking time. There's nothing really exceptional about anyone who's gotten pre-selection since. We're now into the, settling up the ledger with favours people owe ex-staffers, etc. phase. So, I don't see that any of these guys are really that relevant anymore. I mean, to my mind, Latham's the most interesting one because Latham makes the cleanest ideological and practical break from where he came from. So there's no doubt now that Latham is on an entirely new ideological plane of existence from where he originally came from. But he broke from One Nation. And so, because One Nation is ultimately a legacy political project, he's broken from that. So to my mind, Latham's the only guy in the system right now, and it's tragic that he's only in the upper house in New South Wales. He's the only guy who I think is really new. I mean, I love John Ruddock too. I think he's fantastic. But, I mean, the Libertarians as a party are again, they're a legacy of just guys who are content to sit on 1.5 to 4% for the rest of their lives. I mean, they're libertarians. They will never get more than that at the end of the day. So, I think what we're getting at, and I guess this is the challenge when we're talking to guys who come out of the liberal beast system, is like we're imagining something new, completely new, something that's never been done before. Whereas I think you and a lot of guys like you, and there's no criticism, but you're looking backwards at the way things have been done. And I mean, there have been times in the past where what you've said has really worked for the Liberals. I mean, there have been changeovers. I mean, and look, they haven't really worked for the country, but I mean, like Alex Hawke is a really prime example of that, right? I mean, Alex Hawke is an entryist project, I mean, the modern moderates, like the post-Photius moderates in all the non-New South Wales states, they're really an entryist project, and all the way back to Lienko Abancic. Each one is an example of someone successfully deciding that I can run the Liberal Party better, and with it, I can run the country better. And even where they've failed, they've had this enduring influence. And I think, for us, it's like, it's like when you pick up the newspaper and you see another kid in a machete attack who's been bailed 25 times. Like, we're looking at the Liberal Party now, like they've been on bail 25 times. And we keep seeing this same story. You know, it's like, we'll do it better, we'll get new guys in, we'll change the ideological character. But, like, I put a piece up on Substack a couple of weeks ago about coming off the back of the British Australian Community Conference, where this was a question to the floor, where I said, we can't keep doing this. Like, at some point, like, because the Liberal Party are so good at changing their stripes, they will become anything to hold on to power. And, you know, I think there'd be a lot of people in the Liberals who are listening to the stuff you're saying going, this sounds great. Like, yeah, hopefully he can convince them, because Barclay believes in this stuff and he's going to get us all back in. And then all we have to do is whatever Barclay says, and we'll all get our jobs back, and we'll get our cars back, and we can fuck our staffers, and we can take flights to America. I should be shaking hands with the Al Maktoum dynasty, not Albo. Like, so... This is my worry, is like, and I know a lot of guys like you, man. Like, I mean, there's a lot of guys here in New South Wales who think the same thing. And we had the reformer movement here in New South Wales who tried this on, and, you know, passionate and committed and ideologically sound people who tried this. And it's not your fault that it doesn't work. And it's not your fault when it works and they fail. It's their fault. Right, it's them. It's not you. It's not me. It's not the people in this chat. It's not your branch members. Right, none of us are responsible for the Liberal Party's failures. It's the guys who sit on the green and red leather chairs. They are the point of failure in the system. You know, when every single system that you design and build, you have to watch out for, like, what's the one point of failure where if that fucks up, the whole machine doesn't work. And in our country, the point of failure in our political system was baked in by the drafters of the Constitution, who sat around a table and looked at each other in their smoking jackets and cigars and said, well, there's no reason to write in there who is qualified to be in Parliament, because it'll always be people like us, right? And then 100 years later, it's dipshits, and very persuasive dipshits that have around them people like you, people like what I used to be, who are smart and professional and committed, and who could get complete retards elected, you know. And this is what, you know, this is where we're up to. I mean, my biggest worry, dude, is not that someone like Andrew Hastie gets, you know, sneaks in or anything. It's that I know for a fact there are enough guys like you in the Liberal Party who could pull it off, right? Like, there's enough guys lurking around who could come back in and who could actually run a good campaign, who could paper over the cracks, and then they'll be back in there. And then what? Oh, 25% reduction in mass migration. We'll just boil the frog a little bit slower. Yeah. You know, 2030 call to prayer. Like, you know, there's no walking it back now. Like, we have to do something profound.
We've got another guy jumping onto the stream shortly, but before I add him onto the stage, like, the biggest issue that I have with this entire idea is, and Barclay, to give you a sort of idea of the sort of spectrum on the right and their view of the so-called Hastie momentum. So you've got guys that are, you know, completely white-pilled, and they're like, fucking Hastie's the guy. He's going to turn shit around. He's our fucking Farage, and he's going to, you know, save Australia. You've got guys like us who are saying, well, no, total liberal death, but at the very least, at least normie conservatives are starting to at least talk about the issue. Whether they're talking about the issue because they're wearing, you know, this new right conservatism as a skin suit, just to get into positions of power and then stab everyone in the back again, that's debatable. But at the very least, the Overton window has shifted so that people are now talking about this issue. That is objectively a good thing. And then you've got the guys who just completely don't trust anyone even open to the idea that Hastie talking about this is good, because they want, like we do, total liberal death to then go and do their own thing. And my concern is that, you know, Hastie's gone out, he's had some good talking points. Where are the actual fucking policies, right? Okay, mass migration's bad. You know, he's put up a post talking about, you know, feeling like strangers in our own land, which is true. Okay, so what are you going to do? What do the numbers look like? Is it a 50% reduction? Is it 75%? Is it 100%? Are you going to remigrate people? Are you willing to cancel citizenships of people that we issued citizenship to, given it's a privilege? Like, how far are you willing to go? We need to see some numbers here. And what's the timeline that we give them before we go, look, we've given you enough rope. You haven't actually articulated anything. So this, one last chance experiment is over. And I'll let you sort of, wax lyrical, and I'm going to add Jordan to the stage.
Just before we get Jordan in, I just want to point out on a lighter and exciting note, guys, we are doing better numbers than Rukshan's stream right now. Rukshan is streaming live, and
stream of consciousness.
We are not beating. We are not beating Avi. Avi obviously has thousands of Israeli bots, and the Rothschilds who hate me obviously Avi. But we are beating Rukshan, so that's 50% of the way there, guys. So if any of you have both windows open, turn his window off. We're trying to steal his audience by being funnier and cooler.
Or just comment "total liberal death" with zero context on his stream.
Just go into his stream and bomb it with TLD. You know how Fuentes does super chats and you can pay to ask him questions. I'm thinking of doing like the opposite of a super chat, where I will pay you to post stuff on Rukshan's stream.
Jordan, you should be on. Yeah, he should be.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? Is it coming through clearly?
Hey, man.
Yeah, mate, it is.
Yeah,
beautiful. John,
introduce
the
yourself
Young
first,
Liberals. Mate. Yeah, sure. I'm Jordan Abizaid. Have held a number of positions within the Libs, here to sort of shill the case for the Libs to push total liberal life, total liberal victory. From a sort of right-wing, new right sort of perspective. I guess my first sort of point is that there seems to be assumption, particularly in the Australian dissident scene, that in order to actually create a viable political project, the Liberal Party needs to disappear completely. There needs to be no representation in order for us to even begin to flourish. And I think when you look at the UK, which does sort of have a disruption in their political system, when you look at Germany with AfD, the pre-existing political parties were weakened, sure, but they still exist and were largely dominant when reform gained momentum. And I see a lot of our guys sort of jumping up there and going, oh, you know what, Liberals need to totally not exist before we gain any momentum. And I think that's a tactical misunderstanding.
Yeah. Well, Brian, you might want to take that one, because I've just been reading there's some contemporaneous news happening.
I mean, look, I don't want to do the. I don't want to turn this entire stream into just a discussion about the Liberal Party. Although we did add Jordan on sort of briefly just to sort of say his piece. I can't really repeat my concerns too many times before it just becomes like a broken record. What I want to see is some hard and fast fucking policies, right? Hastie's gone out. He's filmed a video with a fucking old Ford Falcon. He said make things, and he said reduce migration. Okay, what does that look like? What do the numbers look like? How are you going to get it done? How are you going to navigate every single snake motherfucker in that party that's going to try and undermine you every step of the way? And if the policies are a 25% reduction or a 50%, as far as I'm concerned, if it's not 100% reduction in migration numbers for a set period of time, it is a complete waste of fucking time.
No, you don't. You don't actually believe that, right? Like you wouldn't. I
if you could choose
between. If you could choose between a reduction and no reduction, you're choosing a reduction every day of the week, right? This idea of right-wing accelerationism.
So I'm done with incrementalism. Especially when it comes to this. And the reason I say that is because we are facing a demographic cliff. It is going to come a lot faster than we think. I think that the government is lying about the numbers. I think that they will deliberately try and suppress the numbers in the next census to ensure that we don't get an accurate idea of what the future of Australia actually looks like. And given that the time for incremental policy change on this issue is completely over. So I'm like, you either go balls to the wall or you're dead to us, and we need to speed run something new.
I mean,
because
I agree
the problem
you need
with
sort of radical.
No, you go.
I agree. You need a sort of radical change in political circumstances, right? We want change in the direction of migration. We love the party to either be totally reformed or something to replace it. But this idea of sort of right-wing accelerationism that, if we allow things to get worse, somehow that'll activate a class consciousness or a racial consciousness in the population just doesn't really bear fruit. Accelerationism itself is a fundamentally left-wing idea. It's this idea that, you have this beautiful state of nature and everything's sort of okay politically, and these evil parties come and disrupt it. Whereas, us right-wingers, we believe that civilization is constructed, it's built out, it's acted upon. And so by saying, hey, if everything decays, things will get better, it's like, no, you just become Brazil, you just become South Africa. And I don't want to become Brazil, I don't want to become the third world or South Africa and allow things to decay.
Well, okay, there's two things to unpack there. One, and I have to put my serious CCRU, Nick Land, Mark Fisher hat on. That kind of leftist accelerationism you're talking about, I don't think is... Well, I mean, I don't think we're talking accelerationism by simply talking about not doing an incremental series of cuts. Because the problem is the way Treasury... I mean, just on the practicalities, the way Treasury looks at immigration is not the way we look at immigration. It's not the way you're seeing the stats reported by macroeconomics or by the stuff Jordan's doing in Sky right now. They are looking at an end zone figure in 5 years. And what we've seen from them over and over again, and we saw them do this in 2013, 2014 under Abbott, when you see numbers start going down, is they're happy to take the foot off the pedal so long as they know their long-term plans are sound. And so unless you can get a guarantee, unless you can have a full debate around what our population is going to be in, say, 2040, then incrementalism is just going to make it worse. Because all it's going to mean is that the public's not, it's going to be happening in different suburbs all the time. It's going to be, you're not going to be noticing it. It's going to be different visa classes. It's going to be moving people around. It's going to be international students 1 year. It's going to be humanitarian visas the next, which is exactly what they did during the Abbott to Turnbull years. And you're going to end up at the same place via a different route and with less political leverage than you might have had from before. I mean, the public needs to understand where this ends up. Like, we have to stop talking about it like this is a thing that happens day to day that the government has got a huge lever on, and they can say, oh, yeah, well, we can just stop it whenever we want, and then we can pull the lever back the other way, and it's going to go backwards, because that's not how the government thinks. The government is looking at a forward population figure in which white people are a minority in this country. That is just the reality. And the public is not being told that. You are pilloried, cancelled, and in some cases arrested if you mention it. And we're not having the right debate. So my fear with the Liberals is that when they come out like they did in the last federal campaign and they say, oh, we're going to cut it by 25%, don't worry. 25% until when? And what does then the final figure look like? Because unless you're revisiting the underlying population assumptions that inform Treasury's view, then you're not fixing anything. All you're doing is doing it slower. That's it. And so that's why I don't think any of us want to see a scenario where we just take the second best option and say, well, these guys are going to cut it by 25%. It's not really accelerationism because, I mean, the whole, accelerationism means that you're taking things through to their logical conclusion. And like, I'm an accelerationist on most things, like an avowed neo-reactionary, but I don't believe in accelerationism on migration, because the end zone of migration is Australia as neo-China, Australia as Singaporean trading zone, Australia as having no national identity. Like, if anything, we're talking deceleration to where the path these people have us fixed on, and getting us off the path. That's what everything's about. I mean, I don't think they even care that much around having the debate on what the quantum per year figure is, what the visa mix is, because in the background there are guys in Treasury in Canberra saying we don't give a fuck so long as we hit our target in 2040. And I think for people inside the Labor Party, and I mean, this gets you in a lot of trouble if you're just into price, but the God's honest truth is a lot of political actors in this country feel that it makes their life easier. And they would rather be campaigning to barely literate subcons and third worlders than be campaigning at us or people like us. So,
yeah, John, I just wanted to chime in then. So I guess just to flip the script, because I think the thing I said at the top of the program, and I do think it's important, particularly for the people in the chat.
We will wrap up Liberal discussions pretty shortly. So just go. But
well, fundamentally, what I want to talk about is not the Liberal Party right now. I want to talk about what the alternative is, actually, and I want to talk about the comparative part. Because, John, I suppose let's take that migration is the number one issue now. I do agree it is the number one issue. I don't think that net zero doesn't matter, which I might have heard before. But let's take net zero as immigration is the number one issue, right? How many marches for Australia do we have to do, John, before we actually get a reduction in migration? I think we might need a newsflash in the chat or something like that. But just newsflash, we probably still had about 300,000, new migrants that are probably going to come here between now and the end of the year since we had March for Australia. Like, is everyone in the chat just thinking that because we all turned out to March for Australia and then went home and put our feet up that suddenly immigration solved? Like, John, just in your view, how many March for Australias do we need to hold before we turn this around, mate?
Less than 22, which is how many the Palestinians had before they got the peace deal. But I mean, my criticisms of the march have been, I've ventilated them before. I mean, I don't think you're going to get any action off the marches. The most important thing about the marches is replicating for normies what we got, whether it's me and Brian or me and Enoch or all these guys in the chat. The only reason you are here and you are watching this, the only reason you know who I am, the only reason you know who Brian is because Elon Musk let us talk to each other online. Because until Elon Musk bought X, we were being shadow banned. We weren't seeing each other's content. We weren't being able to engage with each other's content. We were all sitting there alone thinking, fuck, I'm the only racist, misogynistic nationalist in the world. And it wasn't until that veil was lifted, we realized, oh, wow, there's a lot of other people out there who think like me. Now, most Australians, the overwhelming majority of Australians, they're not on X, right? So the idea behind the March for Australia is to get crusty boomers and bogans with dirt bikes and Kmart crunchy mums who hate vaccines, is to get all these people meeting each other and shaking hands, getting into each other's Facebook groups and forming networks so that they all don't feel alone either. Because right now we have a thriving community of far-right theory cells online here and on Telegram, but the average Australian doesn't have that. And that's the idea behind them, the ultimate idea behind the March for Australia. I mean, sure, there's guys who organise it and whatever who think it's going to change the world and they're going to do Euromaidan or something, but obviously that's not going to happen. But the next political revolution in this country is going to come from those folks who met each other there.
Yep. But what if I was to tell you, John, that we can walk and chew gum at the same time? I can tell you that I attended the March for Australia and that, yes, I do still also hold the view that the best thing to do is to be a member of the LNP to make that kind of change. There's no reason why joining March for Australia, that therefore means that any other kind of association in life, I can't even pick up my kids from work because I can only do one thing. No, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I can attend a March for Australia and signal my intent, start those communities, start those group chats, start those, we've got a Facebook page, a Facebook group now for 30,000 people trying to make sure that Andrew Hastie feels as though he can be the next leader of the Liberal Party. These kind of things that we're able to do, the question is about your political party membership. So I think that people saying that, the alternative is just we need to do, I think someone put it in the chat, 24 marches. By the way, I don't think your comparison to the Palestine issue matches up solely because Albo was always pro-Palestine from the beginning. We always
in terms of how long it's going to take. But, I mean, the biggest problem with what you're saying, though, is that if you're a member of the Liberal Party and an active member of the Liberal Party, and you went to one of these marches and you were photographed, you could get kicked out of the party in most states, right? Like in Brisbane, maybe you could survive, but, I mean, not in New South Wales, not in Victoria. I mean, at least in Victoria, you've got the advantage that, standing next to a Nazi, they're not going to, they're going to raise it because you might go for a defamation case and pull another $1 million out of them. But they're never going to be able to, a Liberal is never going to be able to engage with that stuff, right? I mean, I was only joking before. They're never letting me back into the Liberal Party, right? None of us are going back into the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
Maybe you've got a chance, but I think by and large, I mean, that ship has sailed. Like the ship on any kind of reactionary politics engaging with the Liberal Party has really sailed. And, there's a whole host of reasons for it. I mean, their administrative wing is a big part of it. But these guys still take the media really seriously, right? Like when we were talking before, I was reading a story that just went up on the Sydney Morning Herald about Freya Leach, which we're going to talk about next. And because Dr. Stephen Shavura, who I think is actually in the chat and listening, he posted it and said, I had no idea they were doing this because they name-checked him. And the whole piece is just like some leftist hack drawing connections between, Freya Leach and Stephen Shavura went to the same school and all these right-wingers know each other. And isn't that dangerous? This is how fascism starts. Like, this is what liberals take seriously. Like, I watch that and think this is a fucking joke. And, these people, thank God the publishing industry in this country is dying.
Liberals read it.
But liberals still care. Liberals still care about it. And this is the big challenge with it. You can't do anything interesting in that kind of environment. Anyway.
Well, look, I think, mate, we've been mates for a long time, and I know that your heart's in the right place. And Jordan, you're still on the stream as well. We've only sort of met recently, but I guess the only thing that I'd say before we boot you off the stream, and thanks for jumping on, is you need to be willing to have a hard stop or a hard deadline or a line in the sand, right? I get that you are on the hasty momentum train. I get that you guys are still optimistic. But at a certain point, I think you guys need to be willing to go, well, these are the things that are non-negotiable for us. And if you won't come to the table, then we're fucking walking away. Because the nightmare scenario that John and I and a lot of people are concerned about is that, the Libs do get this one last chance that they're asking for, and then they just fucking put the knives in our backs yet again. And then by that point, as I keep saying, demographics dictate democracy. It's all over.
Yeah. I'll make one final point before you boot me.
Yeah.
If I can, is that our fundamental problem is a problem of political technology. And so I think the sort of number one most important thing you can do is develop non-party political apparatuses, right? Whether that's think tanks, whether that's institutions. I think the second most important thing is some form of political membership. Because, Brian, like you said earlier, if you are concerned about the demographic changes and the electoral results of those demographic changes of migration, slowing that growth is at least in our electoral interests in the medium term. And so, John, I'm completely on board with the sort of radical end state change. I'm means agnostic, but I certainly think the development of better political technology, whether that's lists, whether that's campaigning organizations, is certainly the way to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if I was getting boiled alive and someone said, well, we can boil you to death in 10 minutes, or we can slow it down by 25% and boil you for a little bit longer, I'm just like, fuck you, you're worse than the other guy. So
the slower you're boiled, the more time you have to get out of the pot. Okay, I just don't want to get flash fried in a sort of wok situation.
Okay, before these guys jump off, chat, can we get TLD or TLL? Well, let's put it to a vote. What's it going to be?
I did see some
yeah.
So they're not. These guys aren't alone.
Yeah. No, I'll just say, and good on you guys for hosting this kind of forum. I think it's very important that I think a lot of us have similar goals. Now, sure, we might differ on some of the goals, but I think ultimately we're just debating the method with which to get to those goals. And I'm pretty unashamed of my view. And you can see in the chat how much hate I routinely get for doing this. Do you know how much sexier it would be, John, if I just didn't have a pass for these men and I just started blaming everyone? Gosh, it'll be so much sexier. But I sadly cannot do that. I want to be a sincere operator. My view, and the view that I've come to know, is that joining the Liberal Party and joining the LNP is the best way in which to influence your country, as opposed to marching. But guess what? I do both. And anyway, anyone, if you're interested to continue the dialogue, I'm not on X, or I'm not very active on X. I should be, but please message me on Facebook, Messenger, everything. Barclay McGain. Keen to chat about this, because we need to have these discussions as the broader right-wing movement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thanks very
All
much
right.
for coming on, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for coming on Australia's most controversial news program, because we had on the young liberal guys. That's we're gonna get smashed.
Yeah, we're gonna get smashed because we spoke to.
Hey, good on you. Good on you. Yeah.
Yeah, both
Yeah,
sides.
I like
that
that the window has shifted so fucking far that talking to someone who isn't allowed in the Liberal Party is now considered to be talking to like a leftist. Like,
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I know. Yeah, wow. John McGowan, you've really cucked out, bro.
I'm cucked out. Well, that's what I'm all saying. Yeah, actually, you know, a funny thing. I sadly, I stupidly, I think I let the guy, like, I deleted it out of my because I have my DMs open, but they go into like a waiting room so I can approve them before I see them. And one of the organisers from the Sydney March for Australia, they sent me this like, "You're a fucking flog" message last night, and then he said he's banned me from speaking at any March for Australias now. So, I mean,
wow.
How cool is that? I'm banned from speaking at the March for Australia. They haven't even banned the Nazis. This is what I always wanted, to be more controversial than the Nazis.
Oh, fuck, that's funny.
Awesome.
All right,
guys, thanks for coming on. So,
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. That was fun.
We can say slurs now. That's
well, no, I don't. Well, I was actually thinking that we can't. What is? Do we know what the YouTube slur policy is?
I mean, I don't really care that much because like they'll probably nuke our account at some point, and then we'll just go to.
I know. I said faggot last time a couple of times, but I don't mean it. Like, I'm just saying it in just describe.
It's a good word. It starts soft and it kind of ends hard.
Yeah,
it's a nice word.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, most of the slurs are fine. I don't really use them that much because I think it makes you sound inarticulate, like one of those tuck shop nationalists. So, I'm look, that was interesting. I mean, I was interested to hear what those guys kind of think. I mean, I don't know the extent to which I think it's cope or, you know, I mean, look, this is one thing I would never underestimate. It's the power of dedicated liberal political operatives to do incredible things in spite of the morons that run for the Liberal Party. So when guys like Barclay or Jordan say stuff like that, I think, look, I have no doubt you could pull it off. But I just know that the guys you are going to pull it off for
they're going
will suck and they will betray you and the entire country. So anyway, that was fun. Topic 2 for the night was Freya Leach, which we didn't really cover in much detail earlier, except to have a bit of banter about it. I mean, it kind of ties into our usual segment on MSM Monkey Business, because this has just resulted in this pile-on from journalists. Like, journalists are so happy about her show getting cancelled. Even though every single journalist in this country is living with potential cancellation at a moment's notice because audiences are dropping that quickly. So I'm kind of stunned at what kind of a impact it's had. You were saying you've never actually watched a show.
No, like, I mean, I sometimes will have Sky News on in the background just to get a vague idea of what's happening in the news, which is a terrible idea because Sky only talks about like 1 or 2 issues, and then the rest of the stream is just like fucking drop shipping ads. But I never actually watched her show. Global Shop Direct. I never actually watched her show, and I've got a couple of mates who work at Sky and made the mistake of getting a job where they get whipped and beaten by Sam Maiden.
Yeah. She's not there anymore, by the way. That was years ago. She's
the ghost of Sam Maiden.
The ghost of Sam Maiden. She just haunts the place.
Where's the whiskey gone?
With an extension cable. Sam's going to sue me because I don't know if there's any evidence of her ever whipping anyone with an extension cable. But for some reason, maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I wanted to get whipped by Sam Maiden with an extension cable. But I do recall there was like an accusation that she shoved someone into a cupboard. That I distinctively recall that.
I choose to believe it based on no background information. I sort of loosely touched on it at the beginning of the stream, but a couple of my mates who work at Sky, just as producers and whatnot, they were saying that she got the boot because her ratings were shit. And I just, maybe they were, right? But again, that's just a symptom of how sort of boomer-brained Sky is. Like, you create this segment to target the youth. naturally she's going to have to try and push the Overton window on issues, and then she barely even fucking pushes it. Some dude comes on and makes like a pretty, 10-year-old joke that would have made like millennials chortle. And then fucking there goes her show, and it's just fucking weak, man. So I hope that she just becomes a regular stream of consciousness. She can be our punished Freya.
Well, because we need a lot. I talk about this a lot. That in Australia, what we're really doing is speed running to 2016, but in our timeline. So the Australian political ecosystem is evolving at a rate maybe 10 years behind the United States. And we want our 2016. We want Brexit. We want Trump, whatever that looks like in our context. And so we've got to like go through all the checkpoints to get there, right? We need an actual kind of campus right-wing movement, like what they had with Turning Point and what Stephen Miller and Richard Spencer did from the further end of the right. We need some actual mainstream media figures. We need our own Tucker Carlson. We need all that stuff to come about. We need our Red Scare girls, right? That's what the Australian right needs right now. Now, I would like to see Selena and Freya do a podcast called, I don't know, maybe some play on Jew, like maybe a Jew joke. I don't know. The
Michelin's podcast.
The Michelin's podcast. Yeah, the Gaza Strip. Like,
well, I thought. Part of me thought that like Zoe Cabina, is that? Yeah, Zoe Cabina. I thought that she would sort of maybe go down a bit of a Red Scare podcasting kind of path. I think it would.
Well, she does a podcast with Claire Lehman. No.
Oh, so right, okay.
And plus Claire and Zoe, they're that different kind. I mean, different kind of politics. I mean, they're not really right wing. I mean, they love Israel and they, but they're that kind. I mean, I love Quillette. It's one of the very few media outlets I actually subscribe to. In fact, I think the only things I pay for at the moment are Quillette and the AFR, and which is funny because I sledge Fairfax daily. But I have noticed. I'm not going to cancel my subscription over it, but I've certainly noticed the tone of Quillette is changing a lot into what I call like Grey Connollyism, like this kind of wither the rules-based global order, and if only everyone was liberal again. Like it is getting a bit like that, and you can kind of see from her posts, so both their posts, that they're feeling a bit that way. Like they're not radicals. That's never been an outlet for radicals. They've just been. I mean, they've always just been talking about, like Festival of Dangerous Ideas type stuff. Like, let's get Douglas Murray on to talk about race and there's only boys and girls or whatever. It's always been that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't think they're the ones. I think Freya and Selena could do it, They could be our Red Scare. They're probably not quite as hot as Dasher and the other one, but
that's fine.
I mean, no one's as hot as Dasher, but maybe. I mean, Dasher's not doing much. I mean, like how they would get American, like washed up pop stars down here to do The Voice. Like, I wonder if
we can get it down for like.
Yeah. So when the Trump train is kind of slowing down at the end of this term, maybe we could get them to Australia. Maybe they could come down here. Because, I mean, Australian politics is so stupid and simplistic. We could give them a crash course in it in like 2 weeks. And then they could just do Red Scare from down here. But, like, for us, maybe that's an option. Yeah. Don Caramello says more Grey Connolly impressions from John, please. It's not my impression of Grey Connolly. It's the impression of the person that Grey does the impression of on his Twitter account when he says, wither the rules-based global order. He's been doing that for a while. Actually, Green Goblin, he does kind of sound like that as well. He's a fantastic guy.
I've come across him, like I deal with him on X quite a lot, but I've never actually met him. But he seems, relatively solid.
Grey is to conservatism, like actual Australian conservatism, what Drew is to the centre right broadly. Like he's just the last guy doing it. Grey is it. Like there's every other conservative in the country
has
gone up.
That was like in the forest 30 years post-war.
Conservatives have either gone gay, gone radical, gone up their own asshole like I have, or there's no one out there still doing it. Like Grey is. I'm in a group chat with him, and I check it occasionally, and all I see is like Gray doing talking points that would have just gone off in 2004. Like, just like if you'd sent him back in time, John Howard would still be Prime Minister. So yeah, he's a fantastic guy. We can probably get him on the stream, actually. I mean, he's a very successful guy. He doesn't really care what kind of stuff he goes on.
He kind of has fuck it money, right? We should just do that.
Yeah.
We should like reach out to some of those guys that have fuck it money.
It's interesting reading the chat because our chat are the biggest pricks in Australian social media, and they're all going, I actually kind of like Ray Conley. Like, it's
kind of interesting because like these guys are like some of these guys are like total schizos, right? Like great guys.
Yeah, like most of you are, by the way. Most of you are total schizos.
Like, Barclay jumps on, who like at a private level, Barclay's like pretty fucking based. He's just kind of a little bit white pilled about the coalition still, incorrectly in my view. And the chat is like, fucking skin him, fuck him, like kill Barclay. But then you bring up Gray and they're like, oh yeah, Gray's all right. Like I just
they're nice. Like, and I bet Gray, but you know what? Gray is probably TLD. Like, I bet if I asked Gray right now,
think he is.
like if I just typed in TLD in the chat, he would say, "Yeah, no, kill him. They got to go." Like he's been pretty dark on him for a while, actually. His Substack's really good, by the way. He doesn't post much, but actually, no, it's not even a Substack. It's just his blog. But he writes really interesting things on like military history and things like that. So I encourage people to follow it.
We've got one schizo saying we should skin Grey Colony.
Yeah, well, because he's just saying that because everyone else was. See, Taryn was posting about the NSN before. See, I know how these guys think. They're just contrarian, transgressive radicals. Like we could say. Like we could trick these guys into having more migrants if we got the right person to say it. They're just contrarians at the end of the day.
That's funny.
My take on the Freya thing is that is I've only got one real takeaway from it, which is just like I don't think it's a good idea to insult the prophet because the prophet's got a lot of followers and some of them are pretty psycho. And if you get killed, your death will be totally meaningless and it will prompt no change in policy. People will go, that guy shouldn't have insulted the prophet.
I mean, and plus you just don't know with them too. Like they might kill Bacon Man, they might kill you. You just don't know because they can't ever hit what they shoot at. So you just don't know what's going to happen.
Imagine you're a Sky News exec, okay?
Yeah.
You basically don't have to do anything in your whole life. You don't even have to think. And then it's like, oh, someone on your network is insulting the prophet. It's like, oh, well, I've got, I've got kids. I've got a mistress. I've got, dogs. I've got a life here. Goodbye, Freya. That's a simple decision I've ever had to make in my life.
One of the most interesting things about the Freya going thing is that she actually it was Father's Day, which was a few weeks ago, and she messaged me about going on, and I would have loved to have gone on, but it was Father's Day, and I like my dad more than I like doing random media appearances, and she wanted to record it at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and now the show doesn't go on until 9 o'clock.
Yes,
so there's like hours of review that they could have done. Like, I mean, how many people must have watched the episode before it went to air? Like, who let that happen? That's just crazy. I mean, I think that they were all fine with it, and then an existential party complaint is my gut feeling. And I suggested online earlier in the week that I have noticed one of the few, and it's weird because I've only seen these on the mainland. I don't get them on Sky Regional down here in Tassie, but they were running ads, like Saudi ads for Neom. And so, like, in the ad breaks, it's just like Neom, Lockheed Martin, Global Shop Direct. Like, there's very little advertising because they're not even appearing in the ratings anymore. So when people say like, oh, well, their ratings are down, I mean, there's no way of judging that. I don't think the networks actually have an ability to figure that out because they're not even counting now. So they don't have much advertising. I mean, it could have been that. I mean, Albo was in.
So some people might not know. Neom is the insane infrastructure project.
Yeah, Neom is MBS. Is it Saudis? It's Saudis. Yeah,
it's so funny.
It's the giant wall that
fuck.
What's his name? You know, the little freak show. Wyatt Roy went to work for them.
Did he really?
Green Goblin's pointed this out a couple of times, and he's right that Sky apparently make all their money off YouTube now. So I've looked at that, and you're right in that they probably make more money off YouTube than they do off advertising now, but it's still not that much. Like, because the YouTube doesn't like put a premium on the content from a broadcaster. Like, all Sky is Sky News will be making less money off YouTube than the guy I watch anime reviews gets, like off, like Critical Drinker movie reviews, the guys that do like Dark Souls lore videos. Like, Sky's making less than them. He's making less than like successful streamers. They're making like 10% of what Asmongold makes. So yeah, they're probably making a big chunk of change off it, but it's not really that much. It's not enough to run a broadcaster. It's more than enough if you're a guy in a room. Like
Anthony from Aussie vs. Gender is saying, I think her Bacon episode came out at the same time as a federal Islamophobia report. I mean, I think what you were saying about the fact that her show's not even live and went through multiple rounds of edits and then they were still fine with it, thought it would be fine, it went up. That points to what you were suggesting, which is that there was a pushback and then they folded. And then if that's the case, it just goes to show how soft these fucking people are, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Crikey didn't
Paul
fold
Whitaker
over Cam Wilson's bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That's a really good point, actually.
Like, Hannah Ferguson didn't have to fucking fold. Like, she is fine, right? But conservatives get like some slight pushback from cohorts that fucking hate them, and again, they stab themselves. Now, it's just fucking wild.
Steely Dan, I am Oscar is best girl, but she's recently been downgraded because I'm like super into Marin Kitagawa from My Dress Up Darling. So I'm not. We just lost Brian. Where'd Brian go?
I don't know. Oh, he's back.
I'm back. Sorry, it's like it's glitching out here.
Is it? Yeah, it's probably because I was posting anime in Maine. Look, I don't know. I feel bad for Freya. I do feel bad, and I know her. What's really interesting that we probably don't talk about enough. I watched maybe 3 out of the 6 episodes. Like, after all the sledging, she was like one of the least hard line on Israel hosts that they had. Right? Like, I mean, obviously Shari's got a lockdown on we lost Brian again. Shari's got a lockdown on the most Israel shilling, but like they all do it. Like Murray does it, Bolt does it. And weirdly, one Freya didn't just do whole episodes about it or do like 20-minute long monologues about how Israel should be allowed to bomb literally everyone. But she had guests on who challenged her on it. Like, she had Purple Pingers on. And that's, I think, the kind of sad thing about it is I reckon if they had given her room to breathe, that could have been a really interesting show, because Freya was not the freak show that I certainly thought she was going to be. She actually turned out to be quite good. So, anyway, I'm sad. Andrew B says I'm simping. Fuck you, right? I mean, maybe I am. Fine. Have you seen her boyfriend? Like, he's like... Oh, no, they're her husband. It's her husband now, yeah. So maybe I am simping, because I've lost Abby. I've given up on Abby. She got too weird even for me.
She's done, man. It's okay.
She's done. Yeah. Piranical says get her on Sock. We're gonna try.
We're gonna try. We'll
Could
see.
Freya's show compete with Sock?
I don't know.
I mean, we're more fun. I think. Like, I don't know. I think we could have an interesting show on Skype. Like, what was the one on Fox News? The one where they all just sat around a table and just talked shit. Red Alert. You know the one I'm talking about,
or something like that? No.
King. Yeah, Ryback says King of the Young Libs BF, who I thought was a different one. I thought his Gannon something. Cooper Gannon, his name is. Not great physiognomy, but yeah, I miss Abby.
Early, this thing's whole just completely fucking out.
I can wrap it up because we've got what else was I going to talk about tonight? We were going to do Freya. Look, I mean, the media have obviously been fucked this week as usual, but Albo being away has been all because it's just sucked the life out of all the newsrooms. So the media haven't really done that much this week. And the opposition, Red Eye, the guys are in the chat are saying was the name of the show I was thinking of. Red Eye with Nick Mullen. The who actually someone will know, is that the Nick Mullen from the from Cumtown?
He was on some episodes of Red Eye.
Yeah. See, there's precedent there. Maybe we should talk to Boris / Paul Whitaker and say, hey, you want to try to do the Cumtown thing? I mean, obviously we're not doing Cumtown numbers yet, but we're definitely doing better than Rukshan numbers.
Stream of consciousness, ultimate victory.
Oh, that's man, good. I just remember this funny joke about Rukshan's stream. Oh man, sometimes I write them down, but I was going to open with because I was watching the numbers come in while we were fucking around backstage, and I was going to open with the line that we were already doing better numbers than Rukshan. And then I wrote this banger, which was, it was a historic tour that Avi and Rukshan did in Israel, because it's the first time in history that two blokes have gone on a holiday to Tel Aviv and not got laid.
Fuck, that's pretty good. Guys,
it was funny. It was funnier in my head when I was yeah. All right, man.
You guys will keep going. Enoch,
I'll keep it going for another 20 minutes. I mean, even though we pay the audience for this, I'd feel bad if I didn't give them the full 2 hours value.
Enoch, you've got full admin rights, man. So you should be able to keep going. It's just easy, guys. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it all.
Tight leash on them.
Yeah, keep a tight leash on me too, because we don't want another scenario where I offend the entire Australian right, like I did last time. But yeah, the thing with them going away means that like the mice will play back in Australia. So all the top journos have been traveling around the world now with Albo. Like, where the fuck is Albo every day of the week? Like, he just popped up in the UAE today, which was, I don't know, someone whose PFP is just a cat said Nazi baby gate. I don't know if you came in late, but I apologized for that right at the bat at the beginning. I apologized for saying the baby was a Nazi, and I've taken that back. Nothing else, just that. I'm not going to call. I mean, now we know where the red line is. The red line is you can't call people's. Yeah. But yeah, Albo's traveled all around the world. He ends up in the UAE today, sitting there with, King Maktoum, or I think President Maktoum, which was just so fucking embarrassing. Because he's a hardcore dude. Like, he runs his country with an iron fist. His hobbies are falconry and breeding and repression. And he's sitting there next to Albanese, whose hobby is, I mean, I don't think he has one. Like,
breeding the falcons, right?
Like,
no.
The Rabbitohs. Like, he's one of those performative Rabbitohs guys. Like, which is one. If you're from Sydney, like, Rabbitohs guys are just the absolute worst. So, I'm the whole thing's been unedifying, and he's not even done. I don't think he's even back in the country yet. So he's in Dubai right now, and he's got one more stop. He's in the UAE right now, and he's still.
Isn't it just like completely pathetic, like a prime minister saying, "Oh yeah, I mean, I'd really like it if a new supermarket moved to our country." It's like, this isn't a policy. This isn't a plan.
I just like another supermarket. Like,
this isn't anything. Like, it's. Yeah.
To say nothing of the fact that he clearly doesn't know how supermarkets work, and it's all about supply chain and like how the fuck, like, what are we going to do? I mean, Audi works because Audi has a supply chain back to Germany, right? So are you going to open up a supermarket here, like Maktoum Falcon Mart, and you're going to ship stuff over from the UAE? Like, how's that going to work?
Also, the big two incumbents actively buy any plots of land that could be used for a supermarket. Play the development game. Yeah, and like that.
Because these guys are basically, they're property developers. That's all they are. They're just property developers at this point. So I don't even know what that was. I mean, he's been embarrassing for the last few days since he left New York, and New York was bad enough because the UN is just an embarrassing organization at the best of times. But he somehow managed to make it worse. I don't know how. He's not. I think we're going to look back and say he was a worse prime minister than Morrison. But, you know, I don't think his history is probably treating him a little bit kinder now than it will do. But yeah, it's just been awful, absolutely awful. Just without the
come back to this topic ever again, because it's so marginal, but it's just like I just find it a crazy thing that most people don't realize that the two supermarket chains buy all the land to put supermarkets on, and then they sell all the shelf space. So then all the shelf space gets like bought by particular products. So you've got this kind of double layer of just like completely constricted consumer choice, where you're going to a very limited choice of supermarkets to see a very limited choice of products, and it's all been bought out before you ever arrive. It's all been sorted. We know what you're going to buy. That's the deal is done. We've already made our deal. Now you can come in and take it off the shelf.
In months. I avoid them like that. Since I moved down to Tasmania, I don't think I've set foot in one. Good thing they didn't ask me that during the campaign. I would have gotten even less than 300 votes.
Do you have an Albanian man delivered groceries to you on a scooter?
No, we have really nice, like we got a thing down here. It's like a smaller scale Harris farm called Hill Street Grocer. And they're like way nicer. They're just like little corner stores and stuff. You just go in there and buy your eggs and cheese and shit, which is, as you can see, all I live off. Scott Howard just said you could buy a slave in the middle aisle of the UAE supermarket. You know what? Here's an interesting piece of history for you, Scott. That the Al Maktoum dynasty were the driving force between the end of slavery in the Arab Peninsula. That the House of Rashid, the House of Saud did not want to end slavery. They were making a lot of money out of it. And it was House Maktoum who the first and only ones for a long time to actually sign and it was one of the first diplomatic memorandums of understanding, which now we just sign all the time. But like back in the late 1800s, a memorandum of understanding was a pretty big deal. And they signed one with the British government saying, we promise we will not send any more slaves. And they actually abided by it. So it's interesting. I'm a nerd for just generally, but I'm a nerd for like royal Arab Peninsula history. I think it's fucking fascinating. I love those guys. Like I don't like any of them living here, but the royal families are spectacular and quite admirable. Like MBS did nothing wrong. Like Khashoggi had it coming, I reckon. Adam says Hill Street Grocer. Yeah. The trick is you say things like that and you just move straight off, like so fast that Kaz Ross is at home, like trying to clip it off. Like, did he really say that? At this point, we're just baiting to see how cancelled we can get. I didn't have any bacon, but I should have actually worn some. Adam says, I can't believe John got so few votes. Well, dude, I absolutely can. I got exactly as many votes as I deserved based on the scope and expenditure of my campaign. I actually, if you compared me to like Elise Archer, who was, I think, the other conservative independent who she did a lot better. She spent like $83,000 to get 1,500 votes. And I spent $3,000 to get 300 votes. So I kind of did better than her on like, dollars over votes. But yeah, there was just no hope, man. It's one of the most liberal, like left-wing seats in the country. I only campaigned in like the only corner of the seat where I actually lived and where I knew people. I committed to the footy study. Actually, this is one of the reasons why I didn't get many votes, Tommy, was because I was stadium pilled the whole time, and that was incredibly unpopular in Clark. So lesson learned. I was just doing it to have something to do because I wasn't working at the time, and I thought it'd be fun to campaign. But if I was serious about it, I probably would have said no to the stadium. Yeah. What?
I think how you get people's votes is like, I think it's something that's probably changing, but I think it's also something that's just not well understood. Like, how do you get people to vote for you?
Well, they have to know who you are. That's the number one most important thing in politics. Like, there's nothing more important than face name recognition. And I had, like, I think I went to a company that I knew on the mainland in Melbourne, and I ordered like 300 cornflakes on the first day of the campaign. And they said they'd arrive in 7 days. And then they cancelled them. And it took me like weeks to get my money back. And I later found out that a lot of the other independent candidates had the same thing happen because the Liberal and Labor guys were kind of like putting their screws on them about, doing all the big orders for other people's core flutes. I got like 25 core flutes 2 weeks out, and I did not get permission to put a single one up because all my supporters lived on hills and in caves. And so I was just going out at night and putting them up wherever I could get them. And of course, the Mercury refused to talk to me. The Mercury had put a black ban on me appearing in the paper because I got a double-page spread on the first day of the campaign announcing my candidacy. But I got it because I called Anna Caldwell, who is the actually not Anna. What's his name? What's the kid's name? James O'Doherty, who is a politics editor at the Daily Telegraph, and he got me the double-page spread by putting weight on from the big news desk. And so the Mercury guys fucking hated me. They were like, fuck you. You got the mainland guys to pull rank and get us in the paper. So I got one big story on the first day, and then I couldn't get anything in at all afterwards. I think I did one radio interview. I tried to crash a couple of press conferences, but yeah. Anyway, so that was the campaign. It was fun though. It was a shit ton of fun. I made a lot of friends. And that connected me with some of the guys who are running March for Australia down here in Tassie, which I'm banned from speaking at now. I'm not allowed to speak at those anymore.
They're not organised enough to actually stop you. That's the.
Well, dude, they're super organised. Have you seen that? They've all got job titles now. So they've all got they've got a president. They've got a committee. And I'm not criticizing them because I can imagine they're under a fair bit of stress, but also they got themselves into this stress because that thing was running really well when no one knew who the fuck was running it. When it was just rumors and anons in Facebook groups, they got, this huge reaction. They got this kind of generational thing that happens out of just anons on Facebook. And now they've all got their names attached to it and they want their names up in lights. Of course they're going to draw a lot of heat, and leftists are going to do death threats. And, I had no idea who Beck Freedom was a month ago. At first I thought she was AI. Two, I still haven't had the question answered. Is her name Freedom? Is that her given name? So I don't know. She could have just stayed in the shadows and not had any of this grief. Guy with the cat PFP says, "Hey John, you want to throw it up there so everyone can see it. You know how Lehrman is suing the NAC for lawyer fees when they raided you? Did they also offer to pay for your lawyer fees? And did they do so?" They did, but I only had a lawyer for one day. I only needed a lawyer for one day. So, I'm not criticizing Bruce at all. I don't talk to Bruce anymore, but I don't know what the fuck he's been doing that he's racked up $100,000 because my lawyer fees for the whole thing was $1,800. So I have been giving some consideration to whether or not I could just put my hand out and say, "Can I have $100,000 too?" My house got raided, but yeah. So I have no idea what's going on there. And no, I have not heard from the NAC in so fucking long. I sometimes until you send that message, I'd completely forgotten it had happened. So yeah.
Also, I don't think you really get to sue government agent law enforcement agencies.
Well, no, in this case, he really does have a case because I checked this when I saw the story in the pack, when they came over, during the raid, they leave you with a bunch of shit, and it has your rights and your appeal rights and all this stuff in it, and it's got because we were both staffers. Yeah. Well, he got pizza. I got just a stale McMuffin because they did me really early. But yeah, so this form basically said at the back that because we were both staffers, we were Commonwealth employees at the time. He was a Commonwealth employee at the time. That we were eligible for the feds to cover our legal expenses until we were proved corrupt. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
and this is how it works. This is how it works in ICAC as well. So when I went to ICAC in 2014, which was really expensive, like my legal fees for ICAC across 12 months were like 6 figures. Because I had quite a good SC for that. I had Damien Tudorhope's brother was my SC. But it was all paid for by the government. But the rule is, like, the government, it pays for it. And then if they find you corrupt, you have to pay it all back. So I was lucky there, because in that rare case, I 100% knew I wasn't corrupt. So I was confident in hiring the most expensive lawyer possible and then making the government pay for it. But yeah, the NAC obviously do the same thing. It's just that case. I mean, like, if you saw the reporting on the NAC thing, like, the whole thing was like a weak, conspiracy theory cooked up by blue drips online. And so, yeah, there was no need to go and hire a KC or anything to defend it. But yeah, I'm going to chase that up. Thank you for the question, chat, because I have no idea what's happening with the NAC. I'm going to send them a shitty letter and ask them why they haven't wrapped that investigation up yet. Maybe I'll ask for $100,000 as well, and then we can improve our production value. So I can get a studio instead of the Black Lodge background. Twinks for Tony Abbott asks, "Are we marching on 19th of October?" And I think yes. Like, I haven't seen any reason not to. I mean, please don't not march just because Beck Freedom called me a scumbag and Jesse J called me a flog. Like, it's a great cause, and you should definitely march. I said this on the stream last week, which is one of the things that the NSN got shitty about, is like the level of support that's coming out for this march is just so much broader too, because you got all the other streaming guys, the Grifftainment Right, are coming out in support of it. Some more politicians coming out of the woodwork. Alexander Downer now supports it. So yeah, everyone go march. It's gonna be fun. I might go to a mainland one though for this one, because I don't think we're going to do one in Tasmania this time.
I was talking to Brian about the possibility of maybe getting a leaflet out there that could get people to connect to us in some way, and join a mailing list or something where we could tell them about this, tell them about anything else we do, but just take advantage of it as an opportunity to find people who haven't connected online, people who aren't already enjoying the stream of consciousness.
Heinzie says, "Would you still march if the Heinzie says, "Would you still march if the NSN are involved again?" Like 100%. Like, it was different in Tasmania because there's a very small cohort of guys down there, and the crowd kind of had spoken on it. But I wouldn't hesitate on the mainland either. And that's kind of what pissed me off about the hysterical reaction from some of the March for Australia organisers about the stream Drew and that Persian guy and I did. Because I thought the whole point of this was none of us were ashamed to be marching with the NSN. I mean, we were digging our heels in the ground and saying, no, fuck you to the media. Like, we're going to march with anyone who wants an end to mass migration. I don't care who it is. I don't care how fruity their belief system is. If you want an end to mass migration, you can march with me. I thought that's where we were up to on that debate. I didn't realize that at some point in the last week, these guys had turned around and gone, no, actually, it's bad, and we don't like those guys anymore. Which I'm not even sure if that's the case. Like, it was just this massive overreaction to... a bunch of people speculating on something that they didn't know.
But
I wrote an entire...
Stop running away every time someone says the word Nazi. And
exactly. Well, it means nothing anymore. The word means nothing anymore. I think for a lot of those guys, it means nothing when you say it to them either. I mean, obviously, there's a few diehards in there, but I think, broadly speaking, their political project's a lot bigger than that now. And, I don't think it's something, an epithet that we should be scared of having leveled against us just for being in the same room as them. I mean, I wrote a whole Substack about how I don't think National Socialism is a good idea. And I engaged with it logically, and because this is the problem. It just becomes this thing that you throw around and say, well, it's the end of the conversation. If I call you a Nazi, that's it, and you're dead. And it's the worst possible thing you can be, and there's no comeback from that. And so as a result, over the last, and it's been decades of like growing, the white nationalist movement globally kind of oscillates between full Hitler pill through to, different variations depending on where you are. But no one ever engages with National Socialism as a contemporary political project anymore, because they just think, well, Spielberg did movies about it, it's bad. So you don't have to debate it. And like, there's this idea out there that if you debate it, that you are somehow as bad as they are, which is bullshit. Like Joel asked if I would debate him, and I'm going to go back to him and say, yeah, I got to figure out the right time to do it, because I mean, as you can probably tell, like I have a lot of leeway with kind of work I do and how much dumb shit I'm allowed to say, but I need to double check where the red line is, and that I won't be crossing a red line if I do it. And even then I might still do it. It just may not be poorer. But, you know, the reason I'd like to do it is because what I was revealed when I saw his second post on Telegram is he's willing to engage intellectually with the ideology and defend it from someone who is earnestly going to engage with the ideology and defend it, right? Which is what I would seek to do. Like, it's not going to be like, I think a lot of the attempts from like leftists and people like Drew, and no slight against Drew, but like people I think have engaged with him before, thinking they were going to get like gotcha moments and say, you hate Jews or whatever. Whereas I don't think that's the point of it. Like, what I'd seek to do is say, hey, there's serious flaws in this. There's structural, systemic flaws in the ideology of National Socialism that you might not have considered. And that when you strip out the transgressiveness of it, the theater of it, and the fact that it just being it drives your opponents crazy, which to me is the biggest value of it, by the way. Like, I mean, the only value in it I see is that it makes the left so mad. And I wrote about this a while ago, and I'm going to tidy it up and put it on Substack at some point. But I've talked too much about Nazis on Substack that I'm going to wait a while before I do it. But if you go back to like the early days of 4chan and the alt-right, what kind of posting memes about Hitler and that rhetoric allowed the alt-right to do was draw a fence around them while they developed a new ideology. And the ideology of the alt-right is unquestionably a different ideology to white nationalism that had come before, a different ideology to neo-Nazism, different to what would eventually become MAGA national conservatism. It was its own thing, and they were only able to do that because they were in a vacuum created by the fact that Hitler kept everyone out of the space. And so no one else engaged with what they were saying because they were saying this stuff. And they were being anti-Semitic. And I think there's enormous value in that when you're trying to develop a new ideology, right? It becomes like a shield against, you know, the wrong people trying to take you down a different direction. So long as you treat it like a bit of a joke, which is what the alt-right did. I mean, you know, post that kind of Heimbach TDS period in the US, you know, it does just become a joke. And out of that, you get someone like Fuentes, who is unquestionably not a neo-Nazi, but is out of that milieu of, you know, post-alt-right white nationalism, or Mexican nationalism in his case. Yeah. It's really the only way to do it. And my worry with the NSN is that instead of using it to develop a new ideology and a new idea of what it means to be a white nationalist in Australia, they have just attracted so many guys who think Hitler is cool, and they like, you know, stomping around in jackboots or whatever. And I think that's a waste of time and effort. So anyway.
Yeah, like my take on the NSN is that I think for them the action is the juice. That there's a lot of political theater, but actually for them it's about hanging out with the boys, having a good old fight. Yeah. And
which was the cool thing about the United Patriots Front, right? That whole thing seemed cool. Anyway, I know that you guys are watching, so if anyone is going to go back to the Telegram, like say to Joel, I'm welcome to a debate. Can't be this week, maybe late the week after if we want to organise something. But I do have to figure out the personal consequences for doing it. So, and I will accept all you know, sledges of being a massive cuck if it turns out it's going to cost me $20,000 and I can't afford it. Which is about what it could potentially cost me if someone fires me because I do it. So we'll figure that out. But, yeah. Guys, it's almost 10 o'clock and I think we're wrapping up. Did we cover everything? Was there anything else on the list that I didn't get to?
The things on the list, I mean, MSM Monkey Business and Scene Drama.
Well, the Scene Drama was mostly about, you know, guys sledging me. I think we covered everything. Yeah, we got a TLD from the chat. Chat didn't love Barclay, I don't think. maybe
I don't
we'll.
think they were all. I don't think they were convinced.
They were not convinced on Barclay.
But it was.
I mean, I
know,
wasn't.
it was a loud minority posting over and over again. So.
And before we go, what kind of numbers do we get tonight? How's it looking?
2,300.
What's Rukshan on? Let's have a look what Rukshan's on. Oh, Rukshan streaked ahead to 2,900. Fuck you, Rukshan. Do you know what? I reckon he's got someone watching this, and he got, or one of the guys in the chat's probably got in there and said this, and I bet he's got
he's just got a paperweight.
He's got his bots. He's got his Avi's got his like bot farms. Who've gone into his chat. Anyway, we will get there, guys. We're going to make this channel huge. Maybe we'll end up being the new Red Scare. Who knows? Like, maybe I'll put on a dress and do my hair all pretty.
Maybe I'll briefly date Adam Friedland.
Yeah, you can briefly date Adam Friedland. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next Tuesday for another stream of consciousness. All right. See you, Patriots.
Cheers, everyone.